On mic. Right now.
Madam Chair.
Evening all. Due to the meeting not being quorate, we're going to adjourn for about 15 minutes, just so that we can allow our fourth member who can vote tonight to arrive. So if we can reconvene at 7:05, which is 15 minutes from now, then we will begin the meeting and make our decisions on the items. So just thought we'd call you in just to announce that. So
Chair, if I can add.
Yep.
We do have 4 members of Quora, but one of our members hasn't received the necessary training to make decisions. So in terms of officially the meeting, we have to wait for the other members on.
Okay.
If that helps.
yeah, so we will adjourn the meeting for 15 minutes until the member arrives.
Do we have to leave? Or-
Yes, please.
Oh, we have to leave.
Sorry about that.
Sorry.
Very brief.
It was like talk amongst yourselves.
Yes.
Like it's stuck there.
Well,
You're back on, Chair, so.
Right. Thanks everyone for rejoining us. We're now joined by a fourth voting member. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to members, officers, the press and public joining the Local Development Committee. The meeting is being live streamed on YouTube, so welcome online. Some of our officers are joining this evening's meeting via Zoom. Can everyone present hear me? Yep, see nods, so that's a yes. My name is Councillor James Beckles. I'm the chair of the Local Development Committee. For members in the room, when you are speaking, can you please speak clearly and loudly so the microphone can pick up what you say? For those joining by Zoom, please mute your microphone if you are not speaking. I will now ask members of the committee and officers to introduce themselves. So start behind.
Councillor Lindsay Evenson, Councillor from Green Street Eastwood.
Councillor Jane Lofthouse, good evening. I'm observing today.
Councillor Femi Falola, East Town, remember.
Councillor Sabia Kamali from Stratford and Deputy Cabinet for Housing.
Starting.
I'm Shelley Fortune, I'm part.
Hannah Richardson, Development Manager.
I'm Chloe Toll, planner. Sophie Hocking, principal planner.
And officers online, please introduce yourselves.
I'm Jane Custance. I'm the Director of Planning and Development.
I'm Shola Olukoshi. I'm from the legal planning team. Legal advice.
Thank you. I want to remind members that when a vote is taken, it will be by way of raising your hand in order that we can capture the vote on the screen. Item 1 is apologies for the meeting. Do we have any apologies?
Yes, Chair, apologies we received from Councillor Mohammed Rahman, Syed Bashir and Nabil Mercer.
And I believe apologies from Councillor Imam Haq. Item 2 is minutes from the last meeting. Can we please? Yep.
I was present at the meeting, so I'm present and I've got an apology as well. Got both, but I was at the meeting. No worries.
Are there any other questions, queries about the minutes? Or can we agree the minutes, those who are present? Okay. Minutes are agreed. Item 3, election of deputy chair. Due to some members not having the training yet, we can defer this until the next meeting. And by then we should all have be for it and we can decide on the chair. So let's do that. And item 4, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest regarding any of the items? None? Item 5, determining planning applications. Members are asked advice from the head of legal services on determining planning applications. Is that noted? Anyone received? Announcement from the chair. There's been a request to announce to address the committee. The committee has received the following request to address the committee. Would the speakers please identify themselves when I call your name? So item 7, Castle Point Boundary Road. We've got Nicholas Webb.
Good evening.
Okay, that's good. You're online. And item 8, land adjacent to 1 Forest View Road. On behalf of the applicant, we've got George Voss. Yeah, thank you. Candice Moore.
Hello.
Thanks. And Abital Wittenberg. Thank you. Frederick Bowe in support of the application. Thank you, Frederick. And Mrs. Mansari in objecting. You're present. Thank you very much. The usual practice is to allow 5 to 5 minutes in total for both the supporters and objectors. Is that agreed? Agreed. Can we agree the remainder of the order of business as outlined on the agenda? Agree?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So would members please note of any officer updates and reports circulated? The planning assessment of matters is covered comprehensively in the committee report. I trust that members have full regard to the committee report. The officer presentation will be a summary of the key points. So can we now move on to the first item, which is item 7. Please.
Item 7 relates to Castle Point. Item relates application which would ordinarily be considered under the delegated authority of officers. However, because the application has been submitted by the council as the applicant, it is needed to be presented to and considered at committee. The site comprises a purpose-built 11.
Sorry, could you speak up? I can't hear you. Sorry.
The site comprises a purpose-built 11-story residential tower. The site is bound by Boundary Road to the east, Carlton Road to the north, and Moat Drive to the south. Surrounding area is characterized by a mix of community and residential uses. The application site is not located within or adjacent to a conservation area and does not contain any listed buildings or located within close proximity to. The application seeks to replace the existing windows, spandrel panels, and framework from ground floor to level 10 on the elevations fronting Moat Drive and Carlton Road. The size of the existing opening will remain the same and will not be altered. The submitted planning statement outlines that the existing windows are double glazed UPVC casement windows with red colored spandrel panels. It is proposed that the spandrel panels will be removed and replaced with new casement windows with translucent glazing in white aluminum frames. The proposed windows will improve daylighting and ventilation to living areas whilst removing combustible materials from the external wall of the building. The windows will be fitted with restricted openings to eliminate false. In terms of the principle of development, the submitted planning statement outlines that the replacement of the proposed windows and spandrel panels will remove combustible materials from the building facades, and the installation of the window system will achieve compliance with Part F of the Building Regulations 2010. The proposals seek to address fire safety issues and would improve the ventilation of the existing building. The proposal is supported in principle. In terms of urban design and placemaking, whilst planning policy seeks to ensure that development is designed to mitigate fire risk, the matter of fire safety compliance is covered under the building regulations. Therefore, the proposed materials will be scrutinized in respect of fire safety compliance as part of the necessary building regulations approval process, separate to the planning process. Nonetheless, officers note that the London Fire Brigade reviewed the proposed works and confirmed that they have no objections. Council's design and conservation officers reviewed the proposed scheme and requested to change the window frames from grey to white to match the existing windows in the building. A revised proposed elevation plan and planning statement have been submitted. Council's design and conservation officers reviewed the revised drawing and confirmed that they have no objection, subject to a condition requiring further details for approval prior to the works commencing. The proposed windows placement with a similar color and finish would be consistent with the objectives of the aforementioned policies. Subject to condition, the proposed development is considered acceptable in terms of its appearance. In terms of impacts to neighboring amenity, given the nature of the application, the proposed works would not alter the mass or bulk to the existing development. The replacement of the color panels with glazed windows would result in more overlooking. However, the shortest distance from the proposed windows and the boundaries of 30 to 40 Boundary Road and 23 Carlton Road are circa 18 meters and 22 meters respectively. It is therefore considered that the separation distances would maintain a satisfactory level of privacy to existing residential occupiers as a result of the works and are considered acceptable. Officers recommend that a condition is imposed to restrict construction hours in order to limit disturbance to surrounding residents. Subject to the proposed condition restricting construction hours, the proposal is considered acceptable with regards to neighboring amenities. For biodiversity net gain, it is noted that from the 2nd of April 2024, all non-major applications are required to provide evidence to show at least 10% of biodiversity net gain. This application has been submitted on the 15th of February before the implementation date. Therefore, the 10% biodiversity net gain is not required in this instance. Is outside the scope of the Epping Forest Mitigation Strategy. With respect to the above matters, the proposed developments supported. To conclude, the Local Development Committee is asked to resolve to agree the reasons for approval set out in the officer report and delegate authority to the Director of Planning and Development to grant planning permission subject to the conditions listed in Appendix 8. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've got the applicant, Nicholas Webb. Can we hear from you, please, online?
Good evening.
Yes.
Available to answer questions.
Answer questions, okay. Are there any questions from members? Councillor Kamali?
Sorry, I was more, I know it hasn't been covered completely in terms of fire safety. I'm not convinced these windows will be like, when there's a fire, how would the residents feel safer?
The existing apertures of the windows are actually installed with what we call an XPS spandrel panel. At the present time, the panels contain a high calorific value of a substantial material that's flammable. To remove that design and inferior design, we would have to then look at another panel to be replaced. Also taking into consideration the existing windows are UPVC. Once we install the aluminium and glaze system, this actually reaches a lesser calorific value, meaning it's a lower risk to all residents within the building.
So if there is a fire, i.e. like Grenfell, and there are residents in, would they be safe? Like, what's the implication?
No, it's a much safer system to actually utilise the glass and the aluminium system over the actual existing system being the UPVC and spandrel panel.
Okay, thank you.
Was the answer satisfactory for you, or do you have any follow back?
I'll come back later.
Well then, Councillor Falola?
One of the reason given is impact to the neighborhood amenities. That's 1.15. It says something about condition imposed on construction during the construction period. Have you ever thought about this, and what are the things you're going to put in place not to disturb the neighbors while the construction is going on? Students going to school, traffic, and noisy delivery.
As per all works, we would take the factor into consider a contractor. All noise and pollution would be kept to minimum, and all restriction to site and traffic management be maintained throughout the project and for the entirety of the delivery.
Well, was that? Have any follow up or supplementary to that question?
You didn't talk about traffic as well, is it?
Yes, we would implement a full traffic management plan in relation to the delivery of the project that would monitor and maintain all access and egress to site, and ensuring deliveries would be within a time that doesn't impact on the local residents nor the community or traffic within the local area.
Marley.
Actually, on the back of this, and we've seen it in various different places, when planning permission is given, we are given the assurance that it won't have an impact on local residents in terms of parking and road use. But then once the project starts, there's a huge impact on residents who use those roads, who live on those roads. They don't actually get parking space. So are we gonna look into this before we actually go any further?
Yes, we will. We'll look at a full logistics plan for the site. We have identified within the site there is a substantial area that we can utilise as a full site compound. That would be kept as minimal as reasonably practical, again to reduce impact to any local residents within the vicinity.
Would that cause parking problems for local residents within the nearby roads as well?
No, what we would actually do, we would actually ensure that any contractors working the site would have to implement a parking zone away from the area. We do have other local sites, such as Amaragar, which we could also utilise, obviously, safe off-road parking for any contractors that need to work within the area that have to travel in by vehicle.
One of the things I'm trying to understand here is that the timing, when you have a supplier or delivery, you're going to have a restricted time, maybe 7 o'clock in the morning to 11 p.m. or what time? Well, are you looking into the timing?
Our hours would be between 8 and 4:30 per day, and that'd be Monday to Friday. Nothing would be exceeding out of them hours.
Thank you.
In terms of ongoing involvement of the residents during the construction phase or during the refurbishment phase, what are the plans in place for that?
We have a full team of resident engagement officers that will engage with all the residents, not only within the building, but the local environment as well, and ensure that all people and persons within the vicinity are updated on the complete programme project delivery.
Sure thing. And in terms of the length of time this is going to take, how long
we're anticipating a 12-week programme on site.
And have you planned in any sort of slack just in case this projects sometimes they do invariably overrun?
Yes, we will do, but at this moment in time, we need to ensure that we get the planning application prior, so then we can look at a full programme of works, which we can then publish to all residents within the local area again, as well as obviously the members of the committee.
Okay, thank you very much, Nicholas.
Just one more.
Councillor Kamali.
Just one more. These windows, do they have child safety? How safe are they for children?
These windows are actually CWCS tested, hence why we're actually removing them. The existing windows are actually openable. The new design we're actually installing is a full glaze system, and with permitted ventilation, allows the ventilation to be free flowing through the building at all times, as well as fire safe, and allowing the correct air to move through the building at all times. There is no opening restrictors within this building design.
And in terms of the design and the current, I guess these current barriers, have they been used in any other Newham buildings that we can look to and say this has been a safe implementation?
At present, no, but the design does come fully CWCS tested as per the building regulations requirements and the building safety regulatory requirements.
You mentioned
CWCS testing, that's impact testing for all glazing above 18 metres in height and all high-rise buildings.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any further questions?
That's fine.
Yeah,
That's all right.
Lofthouse.
Just noticing the point you made about the 2nd of April with biodiversity. I see that obviously it's not required in this case, but what impact would it have had? Would it make any difference? Have you considered it anyway?
Yes.
Is that to keep the existing system in place? Sorry.
Sorry, Nicholas, I think it's about the biodiversity net gain. I'm happy to take this question. So because
Apologies.
So the implementation date hasn't been taken into effect because the application was submitted before the implementation date. So like there's no policy basis for us to ask for that because it's submitted before the policy has been implemented.
Yes, I understood that. I just wondered whether it would have had any relevance. Had you applied a bit later, would it have made any difference to us?
Yeah, so for any applications that came after that date, we would have asked for a 10% biodiversity net gain, which is probably more soft landscaping or like, yeah.
So, certain types of development under the new biodiversity net gain legislation would be subject to having to demonstrate an uplift in biodiversity on site or through off-site provision. But it depends on the nature and scale of the development, the application type, and when they actually submitted their application. So it's not relevant to this particular scheme.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. I just had a final question around, I guess, containing any dust and other debris that might emerge from removal of the UPVC windows. What sort of measures are going to be in place?
Apologies, I didn't hear that. Sorry.
So, in terms of dust and controlling any sort of debris that's going to be, I guess, captured, what sort of measures are going to be in place? Any dust?
A full access system will be put in place, as well as suitable debris netting that will reduce any impact to any debris being airborne within the local area. It will be kept to a minimal at all times.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions from members? Comment from me, it's good to see that some who are leading on the scheme are actually implementing this new policy and implementation to get our buildings up to code and prevent any sort of risky fires. So it probably should have come slightly sooner, but we are where we are. Can we move now to recommendations? So the Local Development Committee is asked to resolve, 1, to agree the reasons for approval as set out in the committee report, and 2, delegate authority to the Director of Planning and Development to grant planning permissions to the conditions listed in 8 and so forth. Those members who can vote, please show of hands if you wish to approve this. That's unanimous for those members at home. So that is approved. Thank you very much. We now move to item 8, which is a land adjacent to 1 Forest View Road. And officers, please present.
Sally, can you enable it?
No, you should have it.
Hopefully, it's there now. So item 8 is an application located on land adjacent to 1 Forest View Road, Manor Park. Please refer to the agenda reports pack, pages 31 to 71. The application has been made on behalf of Meanwhile Space for the development of a small piece of land owned by the London Borough of Newham. Whilst the land is viewable from the street, it is not accessible and currently comprises a small patch of grass and scrubland. A planning application has been submitted seeking planning permission for the proposed erection of a demountable mixed-use building with a cafe use class EB on the ground floor, hireable office spaces use class EG on the first floor, with the provision for new landscaping and associated boundary treatments. The site is located on a corner plot of Forest View Road and Forest Drive Station Road. The site is in an edge of centre location adjacent to the boundary of the Manor Park Local Centre, which extends towards Romford Road to the south. The site is opposite Manor Park Elizabeth Line Station with the railway line, which is managed by Network Rail, bordering the southern boundary of the site. It has a good accessibility rating, P-TAL rating of 4, and is well connected to the adjacent local centre. This slide depicts the view of the site from Wanstead Flats and Forest View Road. The next slide is a photo of the site from Station Road, and the next is another view from Forest View Road. The following plans outline the proposed elevations of the building. This is the Forest Road elevation. Then moving on to the side elevation, the south elevation. And then this slide shows the floor plan of the ground and first floor of the proposed building. In terms of the principle of development, planning policy at all levels sets out a town centre first approach to development for main town centre uses, including offices. These main town centre uses are defined within the National Planning Policy Framework. The site is located approximately 30 metres outside of the Manor Park Local Centre, which ends at Manor Park Station. As per policy requirements, the applicant team have submitted a sequential assessment which demonstrates that there are very few vacant units within the Manor Park Local Centre, and of those that are vacant have deemed to be too small for the proposed floor space, or lack the required access facilities, or are under construction and therefore not available. In relation to local plan policy J2E, the applicant has suggested that the need for the micro office units has been identified through dialogue with local residents and groups, and that the units could be provided on an affordable lower cost rates. In terms of securing the affordable rates, the applicant team have set out it will be safeguarded through the terms of the lease agreement that has been signed between London Borough of Newham Regeneration and Meanwhile Space. Officers are satisfied that there are no sequentially preferable sites and that the affordable nature of the rent for the development will be secured through lease agreements already in place between Newham and Meanwhile Space. Therefore, the principle of development is supported. In relation to urban design, the applicant has engaged positively during the pre-application process and application assessment process. Revisions have been requested and received to respond to officer comment. The form of the building will consist of 2 rectangular demountable boxes with a taller beacon element. The building will be 1 to 2 stories in height. The interior of the building will consist of a ground floor cafe and will provide toilet facilities, including an accessible WC. The first floor will be divided into 4 units for local small businesses. The roof will have a small array of solar panels. The building will be clad in fibre cement panels, which is considered acceptable both in terms of design and fire risk. The scheme is providing a high quality material palette that will weather well and enhance the appearance of the wider streetscape. The proposed indicative vision for the landscaping is supported. However, further details are considered necessary for approval and will be secured by condition. In terms of impacts to neighbouring amenity, the proposed development's impact on the daylight and sunlight levels of neighbouring properties have been assessed by a daylight and sunlight report, which details that the proposal would not adversely affect the windows of the neighbouring property, 1 Forest View Road, and that they would comply with the requirements of the BRE guidance. In terms of outlook and overlooking, whilst the outlook will inevitably change, there will still be some degree of openness to the garden of 1 Forest View Road. The outlook from the ground floor side windows is not considered to be adversely impacted given the scale and siting of the proposed development. Officers have reviewed all objections to the scheme extensively and have recommended conditions relating to a construction logistics plan, delivery and servicing plan, waste management plan, and overall management plan for the development to ensure that the proposed development will cause minimal disturbance to neighbours. In terms of sustainable transport, the car-free nature of the scheme aligns with planning policy, and as such, LB and Transportation have requested that the applicant enter into a unilateral undertaking under Section 106 to inhibit businesses from applying for and obtaining a parking permit. Conditions relating to the approval of details for cycle parking, servicing and delivery and construction logistics will be required. In terms of other considerations, with respect to all of the above matters, the proposed development is considered acceptable subject to the conditions recommended as detailed on pages 64 to 70 of the committee report. And the recommendation can now be seen on screen.
Thank you very much. We're going to move now to the applicant team. So George, Candice, Avital, and might draw you into this as well, each of you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not part of the team, but I'm in favour of. So I'll pass over to you, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speak. Okay.
Brilliant.
Unless you want to divide the time amongst yourselves. So 5 minutes, just to set forward any issues. Okay, so starting from now.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. By way of introduction, my name is George Voss at PFV Planning, the agent for this application. I'm joined this evening by Candice Moore from the Project Architects IFDU, as well as Avital Wittenberg from the applicant Meanwhile Space. The Officers Committee report before you is comprehensive and thoroughly addresses all of the planning issues, and so I don't propose to repeat what is in the report. I would like to say that the applicant team have undertaken a positive, inclusive and collaborative approach. The proposals have been informed by engagement with the local community through a number of methods, including co-design workshops, surveys and stakeholder meetings. The application has also been subject to 2 pre-application meetings with officers, and we are very grateful for their advice and input throughout. The scheme presents an exciting opportunity to provide a new community hub space that engages with and provides facilities for the local community. The scheme will make a positive contribution to Manor Park and is clearly welcomed by many in the local community. The application has received 34 supporting representations, and there are local residents here this evening who support the application. I understand that there is a speaker against the application, but we hope that you will agree that any concerns raised have been addressed in the Officers Committee report. We are, of course, very happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Quite well within time. Mrs.
I pass over to Frederick.
Frederick, you would like to come in?
Yes, of course. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your introduction. I've been a resident in Manor Park since 2001. So I've been here for 23 years, and I've seen a big change in the way Manor Park is made of different people. Before, it was a place for me to sleep and eat, and there was nothing for me to actually do and enjoy doing around the place. I was kind of going to central London for my leisure, and dining experience or anything. And in the last few years, I've seen a shift. One of the shift was obviously the introduction of the Queen Elizabeth line, and it really changed the outlook of Manor Park. I am chair of the Safer Neighbourhood Work Panel meeting. So it's a meeting with police stakeholders, obviously principal stakeholders, residents, and councillors and local businesses. Antisocial behaviour is a concern in Manor Park. We have a lot of activities on the triangle, which is the Wanstead Flats triangle, and on Wanstead Flats as well. And I believe that having some activity on a permanent presence in this specific spot would bring a little bit of a safer net for the area. In a way that there'll be somebody working there, looking after the space, and hopefully less antisocial behavior in the area. I think that's very important. We have a lot of drug users, drug dealers, and there is a lot of theft as well around. And obviously having a community hub would bring people there, kind of a sense of feeling of security. And when you are together, you
Just a minute left.
Sorry?
Just a minute left. 1 minute.
Yes, thank you. Okay. I'm also part of I'm a volunteer of the community garden, which was set up after we got PPP money 3 years ago. Having a community hub would be very beneficial for the community garden, because at the moment, for example, we have a lot of activities in the summer where we can do in a garden, but when the weather is actually not so great, activities are kind of dying off. So having the community hub, access to the meeting space and somewhere warm and welcoming would be a great addition, and access to the toilets as well, because the garden hasn't got toilets. Yes, so I don't think my minute is over. But anyway, yes, I know that there are concerns about the space, but I really feel that it would bring a lot of energy, the inclusivity as well. There is a lack of cohesion with all the communities. Having a community cafe would actually make people come and meet together and make some beautiful, meaningful relationships for the future. And that would
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You're in support. Thank you. And the objection from Mrs. Mansouri.
Thanks, my mother.
5 minutes. Would like to start now?
Hi there. Sorry to be here to object. We would love to be on the side of being in favour. We unfortunately live directly next to the property, number 1 Forest View Road. I don't believe there is anyone that lives closer. The only people that come to mind is maybe a family of foxes, which currently reside in the land, and a few baby foxes as well, which sometimes I do feed and I get in trouble from my mum. But just looking over some of the things that have been written, we do believe this site has been basically, through the pictures, you can see a lot of green spaces, mature trees, some atmosphere. And in terms of the building being proposed, we believe the colour red is not something which goes in line with the community and the colour, the landscape. Also, in regards to bins, we have a lot of rodents. We have a lot of mice. The last that comes to mind is me walking down my road and seeing a lot of mice crawling up cars. And having this cafe, you have more bins being provided. You also have more rodents directly next to a train track. The lack of appropriately sized commercial waste bin poses significant worries for us. So secure cycle storage. There is a cycle storage place opposite the train station. Unfortunately, there are no more cycles in that storage. So there's obviously been some thefts. There's also cladding. The red is obviously not something which we think matches the surrounding buildings or landscape. We propose a pastel green or neutral brown. We think that will blend in well. I've got, I think, about 3 minutes. I would like to say it is unreasonable in terms of the daylight and the sunlight report, as the extension of the property has been approved by, the extension of my property has been approved by my local authority. The neighbouring properties along Forest View Road have buildings which match the design, the layout, and the design of my property symmetrically with the immediate property to our right, following the same layout. This is why the window 7 at the centre of the site facing shared boundaries is acceptable. Assume that any new proposed planning application would respect the layout of neighbouring properties along Forest View Road by not proposing buildings which are not similar in shape or design. Daylight distribution calculation should also be made, as both the vertical sky component and daylight distribution are important. If only the vertical sky component is provided, this can hinder the overall assessment of skylight and its distribution within my property. Also, I have a garden, and generally by looking at the property, I would say that I would be less likely to go into my garden, because this is a property which is 2-storey. It overshadows my property, I have a family, I have nieces that come and visit. Would I be more confident or less confident with a cafe right next to me? I have about 2 minutes left. I would say every other residential property on the road follows the same layout. Therefore, I think it's unacceptable that the proposed building should be longer in length, resulting in a loss of skylight within my property. Immediately within the station, there's a cafe to grab a coffee to go. Once outside the station, the main high street for Manor Park is located approximately 50 meters to the south of the site. There are a number of lovely cafes and restaurants which myself and many other residents visit a few minutes walk from the proposed building. I'm concerned about the possibility of the smell, which will come from the cafe kitchen.
Minute left.
I've got a minute and a half on my timer. I would say I highly doubt users of the cafe will be concerned about the cleanliness of the street and will most likely dispose of the coffee cups and sandwich boxes outside my front door, which will no doubt be littering along the bus stop, especially if the bins in the cafe or the street overflow. This seems to be highly likely with the proposed increase in footfall. Furthermore, I'm highly concerned about people loitering outside the front of my property, which is already a cause of concern with the increase in public drinking and rough sleepers in the triangular green area north of the site, which ultimately poses a security concern. One of the gentlemen that is for this proposal has mentioned thefts, which I am concerned about. Also, if someone breaks into this newly proposed cafe, does that mean that the cafe will be closed under health and safety? Also, there are many other existing studios like the Old Manor Park Library, which has 20 affordable artist studios that support a broad range of practice. Also, Manor Park Community is a few minutes walk from the station.
Back up.
I've got about 30 seconds.
Yeah, we can start to wrap.
Yep. Manor Park Community is a few minutes walk from the station and has the facilities to host conferences, private function and activities, along with resources such as tables. Also, I would say we've had some, 24 residents from the station oppose the planning application. 5 residents from my road, which the cafe will be built, oppose the planning application. A responsible council should listen to the concern of its constituents. Thank you. We've got 50 signatures as well.
That object.
That object,
to
yeah.
the-
My mum has been knocking on the doors.
Which I sent you both, I've seen
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Then I'm sure officers can take that
right.
at the end of the meeting. Members, we've heard from the applicants, officers and objector. Are there any questions? Marley?
I mean, we've heard both sides. Is it possible to see the site or anything like that? Because obviously,
We have a picture here,
We
if
have
you would
pictures
like.
here, do not have slides.
We have, if you would like to have a look at that, maybe.
Customer, are you suggesting?
no, visually,
Visit.
just a site visit,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
the impact.
So if we were to suggest a site visit, we'd have to defer the item. And if members are minded to, we can defer the item, we can take a visit to the site to view the site and see any impacts or any design issues and with officers present. If officers are minded, so I'm afraid I can't take any more questions from the floor.
Silly questions, session.
No, sorry, I can't take any. Thank you very much. So,
There are some photos, have you seen photos in the agenda report? But whether or not they're sufficient to give you a comfort in terms of the site context.
Yeah, the pictures.
And I get the fact that there is pictures and everything else.
What are your like main concerns?
I mean, originally my thoughts were how many residents are aboard, how does it impact the local area and everything else? And I can see how a cafe brings a lot of benefit and brings everyone together. I just wanted to get a feel of, I mean, that's all, of like.
Just like to have a real picture.
Okay.
Because on one hand, we can hear that, yeah, it will be like, it's not looked after, so to say. And if it's not looked after, so it's better to have a cafe there and people will look after. So, and because when they look at the pictures, it's really hard to say what is really happening there. And maybe mice are there because of the rubbish. A lot of rubbish that is there, so.
third, Councillor Larissa, Councillor Falola, what's your?
I'm a bit apprehensive about this because when you object things, one of the reasons you gave is that there is some activities going on there. And open land invite activities. It is not in use.
No, the gate is locked, the land is locked, it's padlocked, it's,
But
yeah.
because there is no one using that, it's going to invite a lot of activities. If there is building there, there's possibility that if there's activities, you can hold somebody for that. Another thing you said about drinking on the street. I said cafe. Cafe is not, it's for drinking tea, my best of understanding, coffee or something. It's not drinking tea. And that's another thing. And to you, gentlemen, what I think is that from what this gentleman has analyzed, do you think there's any way you can accommodate any of these? I mean, he has some real issue about the building affecting his own building from the back. And he was talking about his children play there and stuff like that. And maybe probably it's going to affect the price of his building as well. So things like that. Have you considered?
Yeah, of course. So no, we acknowledge the concerns raised from the neighbouring property, in particular the daylight concerns. So we've tried to be kind of as thorough and as robust as possible. So we have undertaken a daylight assessment. I think it's important to reiterate that whilst Windows 7 does marginally fall short, I think it's important to recognise that the daylight consultant has undertaken a range of other daylight assessments as well, and they pass the BRE guidance in all of those. We also picked up on the comment that a daylight distribution was required. We went away and did that. We submitted the updated daylight assessment in February earlier this year, which I believe was reconsulted upon. So we've got the evidence there, and as set out in the daylight assessment, it is the consultant's professional opinion that the neighbouring property receives reasonable levels of light. And yeah.
Could I?
Reasonable level of light, according to the report, is that how many hours of the day, or is there any sort of measure that we can?
I believe there is. Sorry, I'm not a technical expert in daylight sunlight.
The report that's submitted and the assessment that's been done, what's the reasonable level of light? If you have that to hand, so that the public and also the objectors can have that in mind, and members as well.
Outlined, I think, primarily at like paragraph 1.27, 1.31 of the report, which is the like daylight and sunlight and outlines in terms of the BRE guidance, which is standard industry guidance.
Percentages, which I think is good. However, I think in terms of, I think people measure their time in hours and minutes. I think having a bit more of an indicator for where the sun, if it's at 12, how much overshadow or in the resident's garden. That's, I think, give myself just a bit more confidence that that assessment, I'm sure it's robust, but it's actually taken into account neighbouring properties.
I think just understanding the orientation of the site. So it's so the building is to like the direct west, sorry, getting mixed up, west of the existing end of terrace property, which is your dwelling. So there wouldn't be any impact during like the morning, like noon, but as the sun moves like into the afternoon, that's when there would be shadowing cast into the property. And that's where there would be some level of impact, which has been assessed in terms of the BRE guidelines. The BRE guidelines aren't finite in that if there is like a breach of the BRE guidelines, that means it's unacceptable and warrants refusal. The National Planning Policy Framework reiterates that they are guidelines only, and that in a more like urban environment, such as what we have in Newham, that there is inevitably going to be a greater kind of impact than maybe what the BRE guidelines stipulate as a general allowance, because of the more compact nature of like urban environments within towns. So we've taken on board what the specialist analysis is against the BREE guidelines. We've checked it, and given whilst there is an impact, we're satisfied that that impact is not so unreasonable to warrant refusal, or an unacceptable level of impact in terms of loss of light to that property.
Okay.
They'll still have ample light through the first half of the day, and then there'll be greater shadowing as the afternoon goes.
So
I just have one,
are the specialist team or,
no, I'm the resident.
oh, sorry, the lady behind you.
Oh, sorry.
Wanted to say I worked in Jubilee Park.
Are you part of?
Cafe. So I'm part of approval, let's say, to approve this project.
So you're a supporter? Okay, I'm afraid I won't take questions. The supporting team has spoken. I thought you might have been an additional person who could answer that question, but councillor.
I can see the benefit of having a cafe there with the antisocial behaviour and everything else is happening at the moment. But there is a question mark of working with the local residents and everything else. The commercial waste is a big factor. How are you going to address rodents and everything else? I mean, and is that when the cafe, is that going to be something they're going to be working with the residents with? I mean, I'll be honest, I see the benefit and all the antisocial behaviour and everything that is happening, it will take away all that. So I see the benefit of having this. But at the same time, the local residents, are you going to be working with the local resident? Is that something that, and the commercial waste and everything else that is going to also, is that something else that, there's assurance?
Commercial waste question. So this is, we have situated the bins away from the perimeter of site, so there'll be no kind of, bin bag pile up. It's a commercial property, so it will be a private managed bin collection, so daily collection. It won't impact on the council collection. It's not part of the council collection. And then the community part, will we be working together with them?
Yeah.
For the design or for
I mean, I think the concern was it's not in line with the whole planning and with the rest of the residents. So if that's, obviously it's a local cafe and you want the local residents to attend, and it's always nice to have a good relationship. So are you going to be working with them as part of the whole process?
We definitely have been doing already. We've had quite a few pop-ups. We stood outside with the bus stop in the snow, collecting, data on what people want to see there. We piggybacked on some of the council's events like the Christmas fair. We were there talking to residents. We've had stakeholder groups. We've done 2 co-design groups, in which everyone was invited.
I think it's important to note also that it's not just a cafe, it's a community event space. So, it's the idea is that it's there to engage with the whole community and be a space that, residents and local community organisations can rent out and use for their benefit as well.
In terms of the co-design groups, how many people get along to those workshops?
We've done 2.
Yeah, and we had about 20 in each.
And did you distribute a mailing list or letters to how many residents?
Yeah, so we had, we distributed leaflets to door.
Okay.
We had a banner outside the site to say, if you want to be part of the co-design group, please sign up. We had posters in local community organisations such as the Manor Park Library. We had it on our social media accounts. So it was widely advertised.
Okay. For how long at last?
How long?
For how long was it advertised? Was it a week before the event?
Oh, no, it was I can't remember exactly, maybe a month or something like that. But we made sure that we had a good representation of the diverse community of Manor Park.
Sure thing.
Part of that.
So I'm not taking any more questions from them. Any members, any further?
I just wanted to make one more comment.
So I'm afraid.
See, I am next door.
Sorry.
Please, I am next door.
Oh, sorry, I had you 5 minutes. In terms of the ASB, I've noticed that passports are more detailed. If I can find reports, so there's been reports of ASB and asked for a much more detailed management report, so a management plan. And so were there any concerns from officers about level of ASB and in terms of how the applicants might manage it, or is it just to have slightly more?
The management plan isn't in relation to managing antisocial behaviour, it's in relation to making sure that the proposed developments will basically be a good neighbour to neighbouring properties. So kind of ensuring that hours of use, noise impacts, all that sort of thing is controlled through the management plan.
Members, any further questions?
Just some comments?
All comments?
Comments. Really, thank you so much, first of all, for some positive feedback. That something good is happening. And secondly, thank you for organizing something. I love the way you called it, not a cafe, but community hub. So hopefully, if and when you will have it, so you will definitely have different nice events involving different communities. And please invite us.
Councillor Falola.
I know you've said that you're gonna be considering the people I'm talking to them. Now, during the building process, there's gonna be a lot of issues, considering what this gentleman has just analyzed. Are you gonna take that into consideration when the process is going? Like, I'm talking about pollution, talking about traffic, talking about noise, delivery and stuff like that.
So one of the conditions is actually a construction logistics plan. So we will set out with the contractor vehicle routes, hoarding, hours of work, which again is set by the council, methods of protection. So all of this is actually conditioned. Also just some design considerations. You know, we're trying to do as much off-site manufacturing as we can. So it's a sit panel, so that there's the least amount of people on site, that it can all be put up relatively quickly, to minimize disruption during construction.
Is communication between you and the resident going to be a continuous one, or it's just about to be?
Yes, Meanwhile Space are specialists in.
Yeah, we will continue to engage with, you know, people that we've engaged with so far. We've got a mailing list, you know, people that we've had one-to-one stakeholder chats with. And we will also work together with Newham to find a local operator to take on the space, and you know there'll be a strict brief in terms of who we're looking for and what we want them to achieve, and to deliver certain social value outputs which are set out by Newham.
And just on cycle parking, I noticed that they've got 2 bike loops or bike hoops. Any chance any more, or is it this was a fixed number? Just want to try to encourage as much active travel to and from the site by local residents, not just by car.
Yeah, so we've tried to explore where else we can put those on the site. Unfortunately, the site is limited in space. However, the 2 cycle hoops is policy compliant. There is also a condition requiring further details of those cycling hoops as well. And also there is also cycle parking across the road by the station as well.
Yeah, there's a Brompton cycle store and a lot of on-street cycle parking already there because of the station.
Okay, thank you very much. If there are no further questions from members and none from me, can we ask to move to recommendations? So we've got the recommendations up, and the Local Development Committee is asked to resolve to 1, agree the reasons for approval as set out in the committee report, and 2, delegate authority to the Director of Planning and Development to grant planning permission subject to the completion of human natural undertaking under section 106 and other details there. This is a show of hands. So those members who want to approve this application, please show of hands. And that is unanimous for those at home, all voting members. The application is approved. Thank you very much. And thank you as well to objectors and support for your time this evening. Move now to the date of the next meeting. That will be to be confirmed, and we've got the 22nd, although we will look at changing the time. So we now call the meeting to close and adjourn. Thank you all very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.